Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Investology. Okay, so today's episode is special and different for a couple of reasons. So usually we get experts in investing, markets, folks from asset management companies to come and talk. But today we definitely have a market expert, one of the most sought after market experts in the country, but also an author. His book. Got recently published. Money Wise is a book that you should all look out for. Deepak Shenoy is our guest today. Deepak, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Abhilash. Good to be here. Great to meet all of you, and I hope it's a great year ahead for everyone.
Absolutely, entirely my pleasure, and I hope our viewers will take a lot of insights from this session as much as I did from reading your book. So, Deepak, Moneywise, the book. So, you've been writing for a long time, for more than a decade and a half. You're one of the most sought after people when it comes to commentary about everything that goes on in the market. So, why a book now? Why did you think that writing a book is the right thing to do right now?
Well, it's been, I think everybody, at some point, everybody has at least one book in them, right? So this was possibly hopefully my first, and perhaps there'll be more to come. But I've written so much that I could just take the material that I wrote and make a book out of it. But then I said, okay, let's write something more specific, more relevant to someone who's coming to invest today, and how they should perhaps not just look at investing in stocks or bonds or what have you, but to design themselves an investing philosophy that kind of works with who they are and so it's a good time to voice it. It was lockdown, there was enough time to write. And also, of course, markets have been very kind, so they haven't given us too much of a distraction. They've just gone one direction all of last year. So all of these things added up. Of course, my publisher Chiki Sarkar at Juggernaut. She's been fantastic. She's prodded me along all through. The whole team out there kind of built, worked really hard remotely and getting all of this stuff done as well. So full credit to everyone involved in the book. I just played the role of writing it.
Deepak, who is this book for? Uh, who is your intended target audience for this book?
So you typically have a person who's starting out in markets, who's perhaps some people who have had some very early experience, but want to get participate in the markets in a more meaningful way. It's not like this, oh, I'll come here, I'll make 10x my money in 2 days and run off kind of thing, which is unfortunately uh, a significant part of markets today, where you say you come in and say, okay, so once you go down that cycle and you learn a little bit and say, oh, well, you know what, markets don't always go up, they go a little down as well. When you kind of reach that point where you say, listen, there's got to be more meaning or more purpose or more process to this than just blindly going around trying to discover the next big 10x multi-bagger and all that stuff, then you might want to read this book to help give you a context, saying, listen, don't just uh, you just have to find the right balance between risk and no risk. How do you think about how much money you're going to need to make in order to live happily ever after, if you may? What's the right kind of strategy, whether you like stocks or mutual funds or something else, and so on, and how not to get suckered into things that you might want to, you might hear a lot about, and then you say, well, I want to go down here, and then you find out it's a sucker. At least I can give you an early warning that says, well, a lot of these things have been suckers. Here's a way to identify how you might be suckered in the future. So it's like a journey through the early stage of an investor, where I think a lot of people may have already been there, but a lot more people seem to be coming into the markets today.
Yeah, so the book, Deepak, starts with a very nice story about your father. And immediately after that, you have three lessons, which I thought are timeless, right? So if you could give a small recap of what that story is so that people who have not read the book know what it is, where it all began, right? That would be great. And we
Yes.
can talk. about the three lessons?
It's a story that it's fascinating because of course it's my family. My father passed away in 1997, and I was very young at the time, and um, it was a little complicated when he passed away because we were not financially that well off. So he would get a really small salary, and I found out recently when I was kind of clearing out his papers. It took me 20-25 years just to get to a point where I could clear out his papers. But in this process, I found that his salary was a relatively small number, very small number. He used to take whatever was left after his home loan repayments and the housing, a little bit of the house expenses and so on, and put the rest of the money into buying small quantities of stocks, really small quantities. I'm talking, of the order of 5 shares and 10 shares of certain companies and so on. And then he would put them as a pledge against a loan, some of which went to pay his housing loan itself, some of which went to pay for his own expenses sometimes. So when after he passed away, all the PF money and that came, we just were able to use the money just to clear away the loans that were there. And we were, there wasn't so much cash, but what the lesson was that the stocks that he had, and he had a fairly amassed a reasonable number of companies by then, about 40-50 companies. They were all paper shares. I still have a lot of the paper certificates with me. These paper certificates today are worth 40x what they were in 1997. Just the point over here is, of course, he did all the things that we people here that people shouldn't do. He effectively borrowed money against stocks to pay for certain household expenses. He also diligently invested literally almost all his money, whatever was remaining, into stocks. He also lived and weathered through a number of cycles. Uh, the big deal over here was that since his passing away, we hardly ever sold any stocks. In the first few years, we didn't know how to. And after that, my mother didn't want to. She was like, let it be there. We're okay. We're doing fine. So it's kind of got to a point where today I think she gets as much dividend as the stocks were worth, uh, you know, 25 years ago. So it's been a very weird, learning for me is that it doesn't matter really to have seen this live. We keep thinking about, oh, this stock is up 2%, that stock is up 3%. Out of those 40 companies, only seven have survived, 7 or 8 have survived. That's it. The remaining companies are paper. I have those paper pieces with me. But in this process, I've learned that it doesn't matter that only 20% of the companies you buy survive over the long term. Those 20%, 20 companies itself can take you to a value that's 40x your return, your original capital in a 20-25 year old cycle. So, the other part of it is, this is the power of long-term investing, perhaps, is it doesn't matter that you sell or you don't sell. As long as you're invested in the market, um, great things can happen or will happen. And you don't have to make these decisions every time the market falls a little, it goes up a little, and all that stuff. It's so antithetical to a lot of stuff that we do on a regular basis, which is, acha, aaj kya kare, kal kya kare, and all that stuff, which is more, this thing. So you build to a long term future. And to me, this was fascinating because when I was a kid, my dad would never really, I was not a finance guy. I mean, my father was, but I was not really dragged or investment or interested in finance. Other than the once in a while things that my dad would say, I can't read this newspaper. Can you read out this price for me? So I would find the stock in the newspaper and read it out to him. That was pretty much all I knew about stocks. It's now that I appreciate that, in a time when you get your stock price once a day, and that too 24 hours delayed, you would still have the enthusiasm to invest in stocks, build it up, watch the crisis of, say, Harshad Mehta or a bunch of others, companies going to zero, and still make it out quite decently. I think that that stuck with me for a long time, and to whatever extent I can, I have tried to learn from it.
Yeah, Deepak, I think you're right. So the power of compounding, right? Let your money compound, which is like the first lesson. They say compounding is the eighth wonder of the world, and they also say that compounding is something that you cannot see or imagine, but you need to experience, right? It's so difficult for someone to grasp the power of compounding. And also, one of the questions that I keep, or rather, one of the responses that I get when I ask someone who is just out of college starting a job is, I don't have a lot of money to invest, so what's the point? Or to say, what's the point? So let me enjoy my life, and later I will figure all this out. So see, the other lesson from this was, you don't need a lot of money to start making money, right? You don't need that much money to make money. I mean, anything about that? What are your thoughts for someone who might be listening in?
So I think the person that you're talking about is right. When you're young and you don't have too much, I don't think my father started saving money when he was in his 20s. He probably started saving it when he was in his late 30s, possibly more because he didn't have any money. He had a family of more than seven people that would eventually need to be supported by the few people that were working among them, and they were. I mean, this is of course in his 20s. So. Um, if you look at what a lesson I would take away from it, it's like when you're young and you have other things to do, you don't have enough money. Don't destroy your life to save and invest. That is when you're young is when you should enjoy yourself. So if you have the money that's only enough for you to enjoy yourself, then enjoy yourself. Build an emergency fund. That's a different thing. That's because even when enjoying yourself, you can have an emergency that may require you to be out of work for 6 months. But why would you give up on a holiday just to be able to make your SIP? I think that's a very bad idea. Go and enjoy yourself. You'll never get time is a luxury that you'll never get again. So if I had to go, I never saved until I was in my 30s, because I didn't have enough money when I was younger, and the amount of money I had was so small that of course it would have compounded substantially over time. But for me to have not taken those holidays, not gone on a vacation when I wanted to, not eaten those dinners with the friends, which were perhaps a little extravagant at the time, I think I wouldn't trade that for an investing portfolio really. So I think that's that thing I would say. But in general, today people earn a lot more. I When I started my job, I was earning 4,000 a month. So today people spend 4,000 a day. So they earn substantially more than they spend also. It's like today you see salaries in Bangalore. The number of zeros only boggles the mind. So you you may have money to save much earlier in life today. So for somebody who's at that level, I would say yes, of course, save early. Don't go around doing things like locking yourself into a 20-year loan for a house, or buy insurance for yourself when you're single and there are no dependents on you. It's easier to kind of build yourself long-term investing portfolios rather than plonk your money down onto fancy cars or real estate or things like that. That's my view. But I would say if you're starting off and you have money to save, do have an investing plan. Build yourself an emergency fund first, of course, and then go on to the rest, which is long-term savings. And if you have goals like children's education, or a fund for your parents, a fund for your siblings, or something like that, then build towards that with a combination of equity and fixed income.
Uh, Deepak, you mentioned about emergency funds there. It is very interesting because a lot of people have come into the equity market, started investing in mutual funds in the last 2, 3 years, who otherwise were not doing it. People are investing in cryptos, right? And it is amazing how many people don't have an emergency fund, how many people don't have a basic no frills life insurance, term insurance plan, don't have adequate health cover. And you've covered this in detail in the beginning of your book, why you should start with these before investing. And one of the quotes, not having an emergency fund is like a car driver refusing to wear the seatbelt because it is uncomfortable. Can you talk a little bit about that? Why is it very important to have an emergency fund? Why is it important to have a term insurance and adequate medical
So,
cover?
yeah, so I'll go to emergency fund first. The idea is we can't really predict when our incomes stop. This may be because you're fired. This may be because you have a really bad boss and you have to quit, forcefully without having another job in hand. Uh, this may be because you have an injury that takes you out of the workforce for 6 months. But at least for a 5 to 6 month period, make sure that your income or expenses of 6 months should be in some kind of a emergency fund. Now, what kind of emergency fund? You might just say, listen, Deepak, I want the best return. Why are you looking at the best return? My thing is, anything that is an emergency fund should be accessible at a minute's notice and available to use without any encumbrances. Or so don't invest like 6 months of money into a real estate thing, or into a fund that is locked in so they can't take out the money, or a fund that has exit load, or it's in equity because equity can go up and down. So you want like either a savings bank account, a fixed deposit, a liquid fund, something like that, which is relatively easy to tap and use immediately, because the situation at which you need this emergency fund is a point at which you may not have too many choices. So if you're in a hospital and you want to be and you need to now be there for 6 months, assuming that your health insurance takes care of the medical expenses, you still have to maybe pay the rent of your house and the other expenses that you might have. So that emergency buffer then comes into handy, um, and everybody should have this. And I say this more importantly is that if you don't have 6 months of expenses in a in some kind of liquid fund or fixed deposit, don't invest in equity, don't invest in crypto, don't invest in anything. Build that 6 months first. It'll take time. It's painful. It's boring, and sometimes makes you sound like यार ये दीपक क्या बोल रहा है 6 months जब तक मैं बढ़ाऊंगा I'll be like and then but I think it's more important to do that than to try and try to make more money out of equity. It's just the way I am. Now, coming to term insurance, a lot of people buy term insurance when they are really young, saying that acha premium kam hai. Term insurance like this: if you die, your income is no longer there. So whoever is dependent on you has to survive. If you don't have any dependents, you're 22, your parents are on their own, they're earning their own money. Why do you need insurance, term insurance? You don't. Because if you die, nobody suffers a financial loss. So don't buy insurance if they're no dependent, if you have no dependent. Same way, if you're 65 plus and your kids are doing well on their own, why do you need term insurance? It makes no sense whatsoever to buy term insurance if there is no one financially dependent on the income that you're making. So I would say buy term insurance only if there are dependents on you. But if there are dependents, make sure that whatever money you have, and there's a formula to roughly calculate until the age of 50, roughly. Before the age of 50, roughly your annual income into 30, times roughly would be a good way to kind of uh, uh, get a sum. So, for instance, if you're spending annual expenses, if you're spending a lakh a month, you want about 3.5 crores of insurance. If you're about 25 years old, I mean, I've given a table there. I don't have the exact figures. It's in the in Moneywise book. So I'll advertise it right here. But the book has a table and it talks about the rough calculation of that much. Now, what this does is it ensures that if, let us say, you have 3.5 crores today, there's a reason why I'm saying if you spend a lakh a month in 10 years with inflation at about 5 or 6%, 15 years, you'll be spending double. So that means if you're 25 years old and you have some dependents, then when in 15 years, when you would have been 40, your expenditure would have doubled. So 1 lakh a month becomes 2 lakhs a month. So the 3.5 crores should not only give you that 1 lakh a month today, it should also give you the incremental inflationary increases so that your family can manage inflation and still survive, say, 30 or 40 years. So that is the core goal of what I'm saying. As you grow older, this number may become larger and larger. So you might say, oh, if I'm 50, I need 6 crore or I need 5 crores. But you know what? By the time you're 50, you've probably accumulated 1 or 2 crores by yourself. And I say 1 or 2 crores is a big number today. But a lot of people who are earning X today are going to be earning 4X or 5X by the time they turn 50. So all these figures of 5 crores and all actually worth a lot less today than they will be another, as in they sound big today, but they'll be sounding smaller as you grow older. So term insurance should be that part of your kind of portfolio. And you know what? It's not very expensive. So roughly speaking, between 180 rupees to 300 rupees per lakh per year is what you'll pay for a term insurance. Which means for a 1 crore insurance, you'll pay let's say you pay 200 rupees per lakh. You're about 28 years old. 200 rupees per lakh into 1 crore, for 1 crore, you'll pay 20,000 rupees a year. Relatively affordable because it's only 0.2%. Now I'm 47. Okay, I bought my first. I bought recently. I bought a term insurance when I was 42 years old. Another extra term insurance, and I am paying only about 20,000 rupees a month, a year, because I have not taken a term of 40 years or 30 years. I've taken a term of 18 years because that's when I turn 60. At 60, I want to stop needing to have an income. So I need insurance protection only till the time I think I will have an income. So I've done that. So I think this is the kind of calculation you might also want to do: is if it costs X per crore, you allocate that much apart from your emergency buffer, part of your savings. 20,000 rupees is about 2,000 rupees a month, a little bit less than that. So you put 2,000 rupees a month towards this insurance thing. Health insurance is altogether separate, and now you have multi layers of health insurance. But you should typically cover a few things. If I'm in hospital, I shouldn't have to pay a lot of money. So you want an insurer that actually pays, which excludes a lot of insurers, by the way, because once you hear the horror stories, you're kind of like, okay, boss, I'll pay more, but can somebody, just be sure to take care of me if I'm in hospital. And the second part is how much. So your employer may offer a certain amount. You could take a certain amount yourself as a pure family floater kind of health insurance plan. But even if you're single and you don't have any dependents, you should still take a health insurance product, because you can fall ill. I mean, it's different if you die. If you don't die, that's the problem, right? So now you do need to take care of yourself. So you should buy health insurance that covers it. And now there are these super top up plans as well for these unlikely emergencies that cost you, I don't know, 40, 50 lakh rupees. Now that's a huge sum of money. It probably won't get covered by your basic insurance, which is only 4, 5 lakhs. So you can buy a super top up plan that says, listen, up to first 10 lakhs you pay. Beyond 10 lakhs, the insurer will pay. Up to 50 or up to 1 crore. And these insurances cost very little, like 2,000, 3,000 rupees per year. So assuming that you have no, existing medical condition that can cause something like this already, I think everybody should have this super top up kind of a plan as well, that allows you to buy get this extra cover in case of an emergency. This kind of covers what I call hygiene, and I say don't do anything, get the hygiene part first. Now, who shouldn't take health insurance? According to me, most people will, unless you are so ridiculously rich that the 50 lakhs or 1 crore doesn't matter to you. Then dealing with health insurance is a process, because it will cause more stress than whatever disease you actually had, for the most part. Okay, so if the money is so much that you don't care about it and you don't want to deal with the stress, you might not want to take health insurance. Or if you have a pre-existing condition where the health insurer will charge you so much premium, then you say that, no, I can't afford this. A person who gets a quote of, say, for what you and I would pay 15,000 rupees a year, if he gets a quote of 2 lakh rupees a year. Now, he may get one hospitalization situation once in 5 years, and then it would have cost him 10 lakhs in premium, right? So that person, he might say, listen, I'd rather pay that 10 lakhs to the hospital if I get this problem, rather than trying to pay the insurer. So that is something that the only other time I think you shouldn't take it, but otherwise, I think it's useful for everybody.
Yeah. So by the way, thanks, Deepak. By the way, the life insurance or the term insurance that Deepak was talking about is a no frills term insurance, where you don't get the money that you put in back, right? If let's say you survive, you don't get it back. And Deepak, this is one of the things that you've talked about in the chapter called Suckered, the insurance trap, right? Uh, And all of us, I mean, irrespective of who it is, would have that relative or a friend or that neighborhood uncle who would have come with an LIC policy or that insurance policy saying, you invest a lakh a year, you will get after 10 years, you will get some money back, and you will get some 10 lakhs ka life cover as well, which, as you pointed out in the book, the 10 lakhs life cover is useless. It doesn't cover anything, right? Life cover should help your family after you are gone. So what about those investment linked insurance plans that people usually are sold? What are your thoughts about that?
This is interesting. Here's two things that I'll tell you. And this is a story I haven't written in the book, but I perhaps should put it in addition. I have a LIC policy. I bought it in 1997 after my father passed away, um, and it gave me an insurance of 1 lakh rupees cover. I paid 5,000 rupees a year. They told me, oh, this, good, this, that, this. This year it matures. It's a 25-year policy. It matures. It gives me a total of 2,19,000 rupees. This was called an endowment cover or whatever it was. The sum total of the returns I've got from this, think about it, 5,000 rupees a year, 20 years, 25 years, and I'm getting back 2,19,000. So in your mind, you're thinking, yeah, Deepak, you paid 5,000 rupees a year, 25 years, you paid 1,25,000. They're giving back 2,20,000, nearly double your money. This is a return of 4% a year, less than 4% a year. Okay, I could have got that money in a savings bank account in 1997. And if I had put a fixed deposit, I'd have got 12%, because at that time the fixed deposit rates were relatively higher. So, or even 10%. So, you see, the fact that somebody sells you insurance and makes you feel, and they told me this, you'll get double your money back after so many years and all that stuff. Nobody told me it was 4% return. They don't tell you that. You have to sit and calculate it. These kind of policies are designed to sucker you. They are the reason why you should buy LIC stock, not the LIC policy. Okay, so effectively they don't make any money to you. What LIC will do is basically he'll say, okay, boss, if this fellow dies, I have to pay 1 lakh. If this fellow pays 10-year premium and dies, then I have to pay only 50,000, because his 50,000 is already with me. And then I would have invested it somewhere, that 50,000 would become at least 75,000. So my liability keeps going down every year. This is a great product for LIC. But why is it a great product for me? It's a horrible product for me. If I had paid the 1 lakh, out of that 5,000, I had paid 300 rupees. Forget 200, 300 rupees to get that same 1 lakh cover. And remaining 4,700 rupees, had I invested in anything else, I would have 4.5 lakh rupees today. More than double what the LIC policy. And now there are these ULIP plans also. So ULIP plans are even more complicated. This is the second part that I'm coming to. They'll tell you, oh, you invest, you put some. So you see there's some ICICI fellow, there's some Aditya Birla fellow, there's some, all these people. They all own insurance companies, they also own mutual funds. You put the money in their insurance policy, you put the same amount of money in their mutual fund. Okay, expensive policy, doesn't matter, just put it. The 5 years later, you will see that the money in the insurance, insurance product has grown far lesser. Even if you remove the insurance portion, has grown far lesser than the amount in the same mutual fund. So not only are they selling you a product where everything is hidden, there are so many other charges and fees, and apart from insurance, some policy management fee, policy administration fee, policy something else, then some random other things will come, some GST will come in that also. And by the end of it, you find out that even their investment performance is lower than their own mutual fund. Then you're like, why don't I just buy your own mutual fund and buy your term insurance instead? So if you did that, you would actually, but nobody tells you this, because insurance policies are 20-25% commissions. Mutual funds have 2% commissions, 1%. So, so the problem is, since nobody tells us this, and I say this as a person in the financial industry, uh, I think it's important for people to understand the cost and expenses of what they're buying, so that they don't get sad. Because if I was a person who was not financially aware, I would be looking at you, and saying, see, I got 2,19,000, and you would be telling me, Deepak, do you realize that's only 4% a year? And I'd be like, what? They conned me, and I'll realize this when I'm 25 years down the line. This is actually a very bad time for me to. I can't do any course correction. So I think the concept of ULIPs has been flawed for a really long time. The last budget now has addressed one big problem. They have said, they keep telling you ULIP, no, you invest, it's tax free. So yesterday they came out with a notification, and I'll write about this, but the notification says that if you invest more than 2.5 lakh rupees per year in a ULIP, it's 20,000 rupees per month. Um, if you invest more than 2.5 lakh rupees per year into a ULIP, the eventual returns you get are taxed as if it's like capital gains. Capital gains is like the same as mutual funds, which effectively means you don't get any tax benefit from it. So now even the tax benefit is gone. But I can guarantee you this: nobody will tell you. The agent has no reason to tell you. You'll find out only later. No? Chalega. So the problem is this: we get suckered because there is a lot of money in suckering us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And it is amazing how many people are not told about this, like you said. And that's why I think, why this book is so valuable. And I'm not saying this because Deepak is here, but I thought the book was so well written. I strongly believe a lot of us who are watching this and a lot of people who are getting into the markets, just getting started, and they are not the experts per se, would derive a lot of value if you, even if you don't read the entire book. The first half of the book is so well written. I don't think anyone has explained these concepts, some frameworks, about mutual funds, about the different things that goes into mutual funds, different kinds of mutual funds. I don't think anyone has explained it so easily that is easy to understand. So much so that I'm thinking that we'll start at Finity, we'll start making content on top of that. We'll make videos out of it, right? So that brings us to the next question. So Amog Gotke is asking, sir, give us a formula, a percentage of spending money plus saving money plus investing based on age of individual. That comes to the next section, next part of what you've written, right? So after you've taken care of your hygiene aspects, emergency fund, insurance, and etc., you come to how do you start investing. And maybe this is a good segue to talk about how to plan your retirement, just so that in the interest of time, if we can take that as one aspect. If you can talk a little bit about that. You've given a beautiful framework, a very easy to understand framework of how to think about retirement, how to start investing or saving towards your retirement.
Yeah. So, when you think about how much money you need to retire, when you start thinking about it, you think like, okay, I'll give you a rough example. You're 30 years old, you'll retire when you're 60. I'm starting with zero. Let us say I have no savings at all. I'm starting with zero. I spend 1 lakh rupees per month. How much money do I need when I turn 60? Now you're thinking, why are you thinking this? Because you're saying 60 May I will retire, then I will live on till I'm 90. So 30 years I need money. Now 30 years, also there's inflation. So what I'm spending is 1 lakh rupees per month today. In 30 years, it will go 4x. 15 years, it will double. Another 15 years, it will double again. So I'll be spending 4 lakhs a month that time, which is 48 lakhs per year. So my corpus should give me 48 lakhs per year, but then it will go another 30 years. So 48 lakhs will become nearly 2 crores per year if I live on till 90. So how much corpus do I need? And if you do the calculation, we have a website called plan.capitalmindwealth.com where you can enter these numbers and it will kind of tell you, listen, how much money are you going to need and what is the number you need that you have, right? That you're going to need to get there. Now, how do you get there? So once you know that you need a number, let's say that number says eight, I don't know, 6 crores or 8 crores. Now you're saying, boss, I spend 1 lakh a month. Okay. I maybe earn in hand. If I'm spending 1 lakh a month, I'm probably earning 1 lakh 40 in hand. I spend 1 lakh, I save about 40,000. Roughly, typically people save between 20 to 40% of their salaries, unless you are in that super high salary level where you're saving 80% of your salary. But typically between 20% and 40% of your salary, you will kind of be saving. So this 20 to 40% of your salary, if you kind of say, okay, if I can invest only 20,000 rupees a month, that 20,000 rupees a month, you increase by the same inflation, 5% a year, you increase it for the next 30 years. At a let us say markets give you only 10 or 11% a year. That is your equity markets. So if they've given more, they've given 12, 13, 14, but let's say 10, 10 and a half, 11% a year. Even that 20,000 per month increase at 5% a year will get you to that 7 or 8 crores in 30 years. It just requires disciplined every month investing over a long period of time. If you get a bonus, you can top it up if you like. If you have an emergency, you can pause it for a while. But over time, you just have to keep getting back to that glide path that you've set for yourself. What typically will happen is um, there will be a point where your salary kind of plateaus out, but there'll be a point at which your salary increases at a disproportionate rate. So that disproportionate rate is when you can increase your investing, but don't necessarily increase your spending. In the sense, you don't have to buy a fancier car just because you're making a higher salary. You should buy a fancier car because you have the money to buy a fancier car, which is beyond your needs. So as long as I'm on my retirement glide path, anything above that I can spend on whatever I need. So build a glide path for yourself and then track yourself towards getting there. We do this in our PMS as well. We have customers who are tracking. I personally invest in my own PMS to track my own retirement goal, which I have been topping up to the so that every month I'm on track for my retirement corpus. And I started this, of course, with part of my capital, but I'm maintaining that goal in the PMS itself. But you could do this on your own. It's not a very difficult thing to do over time to build to it. Then you could add subsequent other goals to it. But I would say keep this point at which you no longer have to work for your money. So we have a saying, it's behind me also: work because you want to, not because you have to. Which means retirement is that point where you're not working because you have to work. You're working because you want to work, which means that the salary is not relevant, but it's nice. I mean, of course, you don't want to work for free, but if you didn't have a salary, your savings can still take care of your money. So you want to get to that point, and that is the point I call retirement. If you save 20 to 30% of your income every month, uh, and spend the rest, because technically if you save 20%, you're spending 80% of it. You should get there reasonably fast. If you start in your 30s, or late 20s or early 30s, if you're later than that, then you may have to find a way to either earn more income or save more percentage of your income. Because when if you start when you're 45, then it might be a little more complicated. Now, also remember, there's certain expenses that you have in your 30s and 40s you may not have when you retire. I have my kids' education to take care of, but by the time I retire, my kids will not need my money for school fees and all of that stuff. Uh, Currently, let us say I have a certain set of expenses that go into getting to work, going back. If I'm not working, then I don't need to have two cars and travel this much distance to work and come back every day. So certain expenses will not be there, but I'll replace them with something else. I'll travel the world. I don't know, see Wimbledon in live, whatever it is that one has to do when one retires. But I don't personally. I don't think I'll ever retire in the sense of stop working. But I hope I reduce the amount I work. Really.
Yeah. Deepak, every now and then I speak to an investor at Finity who's been investing for the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years. And invariably, they end up with a portfolio that has 30, 40 different mutual funds. They are not an active investor. They are like buying left, right, and center based on tips from friends, relatives, market experts. Uh, how do you think about that? And if you can talk a little bit about what are the characteristics of an active investor and who should be a passive investor?
So if you have 30 funds, you are a passive investor, whether you like it or not. I'll just tell you that straightforwardly, because if you have 30 funds, if you calculate what all each fund owns, net you own the whole market. And then it's not very different from owning individual passive funds, as you may. So what really happens is, we all buy funds which are like this. You go to some website, you say, okay, which is the top performing fund? Let me buy top one, two, three, four, five. Next year you go and say, hey, that is no longer top performing fund. Something else is top performing fund. I'll stop that SIP, go to new SIP. I do new SIP, 5 funds. Another year passes, something else has changed. Then you're thinking, yeah, now I have some 20 funds. Now what to do? So you then see that first year, whatever was top five, which was not in top five, now has become top five after year four. Should I restart that SIP? Should I sell something? So what should I do? In the end, the problem is if you buy, 20, 25 equity funds, in all probability, they're all investing in the same thing. So unless you know what you're buying and why you're buying it, you're probably better off doing it passively. So when I say you know what you're buying, you're saying, listen, I want to buy large caps and I want to buy a philosophy of a person who's buying into the large caps that don't have any debt and therefore have great ROE and ROC, and I know the right manager. He's the kind of guy who will identify the right ROE and ROC. I will give that mutual fund my money. I'm saying this because if you're that smart, you might as well invest in the stocks themselves. So you also decided, I know that I want to invest in this, but I don't have the time. So I'll find a mutual fund manager and then give him my money. That means you will now not only do research on the mutual fund, you'll do some research on the mutual fund manager. Oh, this guy, he talks sense, he does this, he does this, he does this. So there are some mutual fund managers who, for instance, have bought PSUs for the last 15 years and underperformed the market. But at least they've been true to their philosophy. So if you're a PSU kind of person, you want to invest in that guy. So I think also long term PSUs will do well, PSU banks will do well. So I like that guy. I know he's not performed. It's okay. I'll go with his philosophy. But if you're the person who's like, I want to buy top 10 mutual funds, what difference does it make to you whether A mutual fund is or B mutual fund is poor? This is because you don't understand the philosophy difference between the two funds. You will only go for the fund which has consistently performed over a period of time. If you can't identify such consistent performers, you'll just go. You should go passive. Now, I have 1/3 of my exposure in passive. That's not because I feel that passive is a bad thing or anything. That I just think that a combination of top 100 India, top 100 US is a very good combination. And this has done very well in the last 10 years. I hope it will do very well in the next 10 years as well. Um, this is a good 1/3 of my exposure. The remaining 2/3 is spread between actively selected stocks as part of the PMS, and another is selected in a strategy called momentum, which is algorithmically run kind of stock. So I understand the philosophy between those two. So I kind of like those. The rest of it is passive because I don't see any value in going after certain mutual funds just because they are top performing. I would rather go with them because they have more because I believe in their philosophy. So having too many funds is a problem. You're actually passive and you don't know it. Having certain funds just for the sake of performance is a problem because you will not be able to live with underperformance if and when it happens because you're not imbibed into the philosophy of the fund and the fund manager. And if you are, that's when you should go for the active funds.
Thanks so much, Deepak. The whole book, Money Wise, is peppered with a lot of such interesting frameworks, how to think about money. And it's written in such an easy way that everyone can understand. So I strongly suggest that you pick up the book and read part of it. Even if you don't buy the paperback or the hardcover version of it, the Kindle version is available just for $29. So please go ahead. It's a worthwhile investment. Deepak, last two questions. Madhusudan Thakur is asking, when can we expect mutual funds from Capitalminds?
Well, we've applied. It will be left to SEBI to approve our application, and then so timelines are not something we can determine. But I wouldn't expect it in 2022. It typically takes a while for them to kind of process the application. So when it happens, I hope it happens soon enough. But we will definitely, kind of make a big notice of it that we've got some. But I mean, there are lots more funds coming in the interim. There will be Bajaj, there will be Zerodha, there will be a bunch of others who have applied or will apply, and perhaps get their license as well. So exciting field to be in. I'd love to be part of it, but not right now. I mean, we can't right now. So
Got that. And are we going to see a follow up for Money Wise?
We definitely are. The question now becomes, I mean, this is my first book, so obviously I made a lot of rookie mistakes when I wrote it. Perhaps some parts of it are not as nicely sequestered as they should have been. When I read it back again, I say, okay, well, I could have done this better. So we do want to improve with an edition. Based on demand, of course. If a lot of you buy it, we would. I would love to kind of see where that goes and kind of rewrite some portions of it, make it slightly bigger as well, because I think I need to flesh out some more aspects of either stock investing or mutual fund investing that perhaps I've left out, thinking it's too simple to talk about.
Got it. So I thoroughly enjoyed the book, Deepak, and I hope everyone who picks up some of the folks out there will pick up the book, and I strongly recommend that they do. And it's pretty well written. While Deepak, you say that there are many things to be improved, I'm sure, but still there is so much value to be derived from the book. With that, we are coming towards the end of the session. Any parting comments to our listeners, viewers, Deepak?
So my view in the longer term is this: it's everybody worries about their investments a lot. Uh, where the market is down today, what should I do? Should I change my SIP? Should I stop my SIP in something and all that stuff? I think you should do something that discovers who you are. And I've written this in the book as well. There are different kinds of investors. There are people who make money doing intraday trading. There are people who make money buying a stock and forgetting about it. You should find out what kind of investor you are. You don't have to be all of them, and you will definitely not be all of them. You don't have to be someone who doubles his money every 2 days or every month or every year. Even if you make 10x your money in 10 years, you might actually do better than someone who doubles his money after 2 days and then doesn't do anything for the next 10 years. So, uh, you should spend a lot of time to discover what kind of an investor you are, in terms of, do you like a lot of activity or are you more passive in nature? Do you want to sit back and look at your investments once a month rather than worry about daily day-to-day movements? Because every minute that you're worried about your investments is every minute that you're not doing something that is more fun in your life. So if you discover who you are, I think investments are built to make you happy. Remember, of course, that money is meant to be spent. It is not meant to be passed to the next generation. It is not meant to be hoarded and kept in a cupboard forever. It is meant to eventually be spent. The concept of investing is, instead of spending today, I will spend tomorrow. But it is of no use if you don't even spend tomorrow. So when you have the money, spend it, uh, and spend it well. Live the life that you really want to, because too many times, and we're from South India, we're in South India, right? So people don't spend. Yeah, what will people say if I buy, like, this car, or if I go, I mean, will I go to spend so much money just going to some some place for breakfast and all that stuff? But it after you've met your goals, all of this stuff is irrelevant. I think over time, learning to spend to be happy is also a skill that, of course, some of us are born with, and some of us need to learn. And perhaps old age will help us. I'm old. You guys are young, so uh, perhaps that is something that we teach. And I you don't find a finance guy often telling you that don't save and spend instead. But I think you should. I think you'll do yourself a favor, and you'll feel a lot happier if you actually learn to eventually spend the money.
There you go. I think timeless lessons. Thanks so much for your time, Deepak. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure our viewers did too. Viewers, that's all from us today. Thanks so much for joining us. If you like the content, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel so that we'll be able to reach out to you as and when we have more such shows. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much, Deepak.
Thanks so much. Lovely to be here, and lovely to have spent time with all of you.
Entirely our pleasure. Thank you.